Hello, everyone, and welcome to our online panel discussion. Our topic is selecting and optimizing an MSSP, which is managed security services provider for business enablement and business growth. Folks, security challenges in any form or shape are top of mind of almost every IT and security professional, especially in today's business environment. In fact, I was reading a worldwide CEO survey report on board priorities, and the results from the survey showed that cyber threats and digital sovereignty made top of the list for most board members. Hence, any business, whether small, medium, or large, they have to prioritize cybersecurity in order for them to stay relevant, competitive, and be successful. Before I introduce our panelists today, I'd like to go over some housekeeping stuff. We are recording this session and they will be made available for on-demand viewing on our website, hughes.com/security. Also, if you notice, there's a Q&A icon on top of your screen. By clicking this icon, you can enter any questions or comments, and we'll try to address these questions either during our discussions or towards the end. The discussion today will start out with talking about today's compute environment and how it has evolved over the past decade. We'll go over some of the security challenges businesses are facing, and later we'll talk about some best practices in selecting your MSSP. And once you select your managed security services partner, we'll talk about how to optimize that relationship or that partnership for business success. With that, let me have the pleasure of introducing our two-star panelists. We have Paul Kay, who is a Senior VP and CISO with EchoStar. And we're also joined by Jonathan Nguyen, who is a Senior VP and a Field CISO with our longtime partner, Fortinet. Paul, I'll start with you. I know you have a very interesting educational background, and you also have a very interesting and diverse career. Tell us a bit about yourself and your current role as a EchoStar.
Sure. Well, I started in government services and transitioned to private industry, and I guess educationally, I kind of did a little bit backwards. I first went to law school, then got my MPA, and then got a degree in information management, all within a bunch of years. So since then, I've been progressing throughout my career and worked for some major Fortune 500, 100 companies, and now I've been happily at EchoStar as their Chief Information Security Officer for the past 7+ years now.
Thank you. That's a very interesting background, Paul. Jonathan, how about yourself? Likewise, you have also a very interesting and long career. Tell us about your background and current role as a field CISO at Fortinet.
Sure. So like Paul, it's interesting. I started off in public sector as well. I was a foreign service officer where I got my first grounding in counterintelligence and encryption. From there, I went to law school. Didn't like that, so I completed the MBA, my JD MBA program. So I realized somewhere along the way, site checking and blue booking just wasn't for me. So I got an MBA. Was one of the first ones with a concentration in IT. And marketing IT, and then from there, I went into a Fortune 20 telco and ran the MSS business there for, progressing from the first firewall manager through a security CTO after 16 years. And I ran one of the largest threat reports in the industry. And then I came to Fortinet to really just take that experience after 20 odd years and just try to get security right. So really thankful for the partnership with you all and this opportunity to meet with your stakeholders.
Excellent, awesome. So two very interesting backgrounds, very long, 25-year plus backgrounds in security, government, having some law background. This is an excellent panel. Jonathan, let me start with you. Walk us through the digital transformation journey over the past 5-10 years and how we've shifted from data center to cloud, and then hybrid multi-clouds. And then, to add to that complexity, we have remote workers, right? In recent past, over the last couple of years, we have people working from different locations on multiple devices. So walk us through this landscape.
Sure. Yeah, we'll do 25 years in cybersecurity in my career in about 30 seconds. So yeah, we start off with the idea that no matter what, it's always about connecting and protecting the computing node. So you go back to the earliest days of DARPA and what we now call the internet and the World Wide Web. It was about connecting users with computing resources, mainframes, on a campus environment. We call that a LAN, a local area network. Once we began connecting campuses and data centers together, that became a wide area network. And now we're at a stage where computing is really not only distributed, but increasingly decentralized in applications. So now our computing is not only in that traditional campus environment, the enterprise perimeter, if you will, but now it's also into multiple and hybrid clouds and increasingly on the, quote, enterprise edge. And so security has also evolved and networking has evolved over that time. We went from just point defense products, progressively more integrated products into a platform, if you will. And now we're into security fabrics, and networking has evolved as well. We went from lease lines and hub and spoke architectures. Remember, those data centers were hubs, right? And so all the traffic went out of these hubs. And so today we no longer have centralized hubs. We have distributed computing all over the place.
Right.
And so now we have a software-defined wide area network, SD-WAN. And so what that means for not only this audience looking into what we have today, but for the next foreseeable future, understanding where the compute is and the need to connect computing wherever the data is being generated, stored, curated, analyzed, utilized, right? We need to figure out how we're going to connect users to the data and then how we're going to protect that as well. And so what we've seen over the last 6 years is just the rapid acceleration of those macro trends that you spoke about, whether you call it digital transformation, digital acceleration, the fourth industrial revolution. The bottom line is this: all of our businesses, small, medium, large, global enterprise, public, private sector, have all digitized their business processes. And what that means now more than ever before is that the level of complexity is so high and the intervals between the business operating cycles are so short that nobody thinks of security as a DIY exercise. Indeed, as Admiral Rogers, the former head of CyberCat, said, cybersecurity is a team sport, right? And so pertinent for our discussion today, understanding that it's not a DIY exercise, understanding that our problems, our adversaries don't operate as individuals, they operate as teams, that we need to figure out what's the best way to use an MSSP to get the most out of security and then to enable that business.
Interesting. Paul, walk us through your background. How have you seen this landscape evolve over the past 5-10 years?
Well, I can just say whatever Jonathan said. But to add to what Jonathan's statement is, which I completely agree with, that's the state we're in. There's massive amount of risk, unfortunately, on the supply chain side, the digital supply chain. So in addition to worrying about your own network, you have to worry about your third parties, where you're logging into. Do you have good contractual language over there to kind of enforce your own security standards to protect your own assets, because they might be outsourced. Let's say you have a outsourced, HR system that you log into, and everything's in there. So in addition to everything that Jonathan said, it's supply chain risk is probably one of the hardest things to solve, because unfortunately, a lot of times we don't control it directly. So you have to control it contractually and frankly through trust. And again, it is a team effort. So if we all work as individuals or individual companies and we don't work together, then the adversary's going to keep winning every single day.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Let's try to get into the mind of a small business owner, right, today, and how this whole landscape has evolved over the last 5 years. Let's say, let's take 5 years. What would you advise, Paul? I'm going to ask you first, to a small business owner who sees all these things, these buzzwords, these acronyms out there, cybersecurity. He has a couple of sites, he has a few employees, maybe 100 employees. What would you advise that small business owner to look out for when it comes to the security, the cyber threats out there?
Well, I think first, the small business owner is not going to be in the business of security. And I think any smart and professional business person would understand that you need to bring in an advisor who understands risk, understands risk tolerance and risk acceptance, and then basically bring in a service like an MSSP to kind of protect your assets as you're moving your business forward. That said, one of the things that needs to be tuned constantly is, what are the risks at your small business? Is it the points of sale? Is it wireless connections in your retail shop? Is it your IoT devices at your gas station? Those are the kind of things you, as a business owner, need to risk rank and say, these are the most critical assets, maybe the top 5, and then use that as a foundation to talk to a professional on how to reasonably protect it in the environment that we live in these days.
Yeah, and then, I mean, he may be small or she may be small business today, but you got to look at the future as well, right? They'll grow if they work with a partner, a managed service, security service provider or partner that would actually help them along that journey. Jonathan, what do you think?
Yeah, the small, medium business owner really is so many people. He or she is a CEO, the COO, the CFO, the CIO, the CISO.
Right.
And it has to wear all these hats, balance all these complexities and all of these risks, and at the same time enable the business, right? And so one of the things that I think is so unique about Hughes is Hughes' deep understanding and intimacy with its customers, right? And so if I speak to small and medium business owners, I'm looking for a service provider that understands first my business and understands my network, and understands my IT challenges, right? And knows that it's different for an SMB, a micro SMB, a mid-market, all the way through a global enterprise. So I'm looking for a partner that understands my business goals, but then has a demonstrated history of working with people like me, right? that you've done this before. This is not your first rodeo, that you specialize in helping manage risk for SMBs and mid-markets. But more importantly, the thing about someone like Hughes and EchoStar and Fortinet is this ability to reduce complexity and manage complexity and risk, not only in just security, but the networking side of the house, right? And so, your ability to manage network services in terms of SD-WAN and SD branch solutions, and using Fortinet that converges networking and security in the same platform, man, I got to tell you, that's a huge differentiator for an SMB owner, because there are very, very few service providers. And Paul, you and I both come from this space that really understand the business side, to understand that business owner's concern and helps meet those concerns, but more importantly, really understands their goals and how to help them grow over time, right? So that's what I'm looking for. And I think SMB business owners and mid-market owners, they just have to wear a lot of hats, right? And so, your ability to abstract and reduce complexity is going to be a huge differentiator, and something that I find the folks who realize that, they get a lot of value out of that. And the folks who didn't realize it up front, what they end up doing is managing even more complexity. So now they've got a network provider for their internet access and their voice services. They've got an MSP that handles security as well. They may have another MSP that handles their IT solution sets. And what have they done? They've created multiple training requirements, contracting requirements, and more levels of complexity. So yeah, one of the big themes in our industry right now is about reducing complexity and consolidation right now. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. So, I mean, we get it that the rapid innovation can be messy, and it leads to confusion and a lot of clutter out there, right? There's a lot of reports out there, a lot of acronyms, like MSSP is one of them, right?
Yeah.
It's Managed Security Service. I call it partner instead of provider, but that P could work for both. It's exciting and encouraging to see so many solutions out there and so many solution providers out there who are constantly inventing new solutions.
Yeah.
And there's so many terms and acronyms and reports out there which could be quite overwhelming sometimes, right? For a small, medium business owner who do not have the advanced skill sets. Like you said, Jonathan, they're wearing various hats. You know, they're procuring stuff, they're managing employees, they're also talking to their networking person, they're talking to the security person, they're talking to their HR person. So they're wearing a lot of hats, and it could be quite overwhelming. And now with recent security threats in different verticals, they are concerned about their brand. They're concerned about ransomware and all those other things, and budget, resources, hiring people. It's hard to mitigate these threats. So, but IT and IS, information security leadership, they've recognized the need to outsource cybersecurity expertise. But like I said, for a small, medium business, it's important to know what they're getting into, what kind of relationship or partnership they're getting into, what they are buying. So just break these terms out. What's the best option? We've heard MDR, we've heard XDR, MSP, MNSP, MSSP. Why an MSSP for a small, medium business owner?
Well, I'll start off, and so the progression in quote security maturity starts with an MSSP, a managed security services provider. So this is a service that aggregates alerts from security devices and services and gives the alerts back to the security team of that user to begin the mitigation. And then from there you move on to managed detection and response, which gives you access to more higher level services in terms of incident response and detection capabilities as well. The NDR begins to look at non-security devices. That's a network detection and response capabilities. And then finally, you get this progression to XDR, where you're correlating alerts from multiple security and network devices, and you're doing the detection and response. But the practical reality is this, especially for small, medium businesses, they're not going to be targeted by advanced persistent threats with 0 days, right? They're going to be hit by mostly the known variations of malware, the known knowns, the exploitations of known vulnerabilities. The data from FortiGuard Labs and from Hughes and any other reputable security company is going to tell you that the vast majority of security threats can be mitigated through simple to intermediate controls. It's just as you said, the level of complexities we have today. There are over 6,000 vendors in the space today. Any given day, FortiGuard Labs at Fortinet, we'll see 10 billion security events, right? It just gets really overwhelming. What you should look for as an SMB mid-market business owner in a security services provider, whether it's MSP, MSSP, or any of the other service providers, is this: the ability to leverage enterprise class capabilities, meaning a partnership with Fortinet that brings all these advanced technologies and research and intelligence, delivers that in a product and a service like you all do at EchoStar and Hughes at a price point that makes sense for the SMB or mid-market. That's value. That's value in pricing, it's value in efficacy, it's value in capabilities. And that's how I would look at it, right? But at the same time, understanding that you want that service provider to also be equally adept with networking services as well. That's the other value play. So I'll turn it over to Paul, but yeah, I'm always looking for someone who can abstract the complexity and as Paul said to me the other day, deliver on the user experience and ultimately the business outcome, right?
Sure, no, totally agree. And I think that's one of the advantages Hughes actually has, because especially for their customers, they're already in there as a managed service provider, deploying connectivity and data transport. So adding on the MSSP service is an added value because your partner already knows your network, already knows your business, and you already have that relationship. So a lot of times small business and medium business owners, when they're looking for a pure play security outsourced group, whether it's MSSP or MDR, there's just a ton of questions. Cost, how do they integrate into the network? How do they talk to all the other devices that are not security devices? How do they put the sensors in? So I think that's the biggest advantage Hughes has. It's pretty much a one-stop shop these days.
Yeah, that's key. It always reminds me of what Kelly Kavanaugh, who's the Gartner analyst and author of all the magic quadrant for SIM, and then this for MSS. He told me once years ago when I was at a carrier, he said, Jonathan, there's a big difference between someone who owns and operates the pipes than someone who merely taps the pipes. And more so than ever, as we think about digitized business processes and those end-to-end communications, that's the real competitive advantage that a Hughes, EchoStar, and a Fortinet bring to the table. And I think that's what you should be asking. Whenever you approach a service provider, ask them, how much visibility do you have edge to edge? How much control do you have over all the devices to provide visibility? How much control do you have over the complexities of long distance routing? I will tell you today, the complexities of long distance routing are often underappreciated, but at the end of the day, it's the ability to orchestrate and assure that quality of service that leads to quality of experience, which leads to better business outcomes, is something that just about all businesses, irrespective of size, need to ask.
Very interesting. These are really nice comments. So I think we have established that managed security service partner provider is the way to go. Tell us, what are for a business owner or a business executive, what are some of the important characteristics to consider when picking a new partner for MSSP or for a relationship with MSP? What are the few characteristics that a business owner or an executive should be looking for?
Well, first thing I'd be looking for is this a technology company that wants to make a sale, or is this a technology company that wants to be a partner? So I'd be looking for companies who understand your business, your industry, your vertical, and have other customers and a good long history of other customers in those verticals and those industries to get a good benchmark as to their performance. And of course, referrals and word on the street is always great too. But I mean, those are some of the things that I would think of top of mind as a business owner if I'm trying to hire an MSSP or an MDR service.
All right,
yeah, I would also look at the underlying technology as well. Just like there are thousands of technology vendors out there, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of service providers out there. Some are MDR providers, some are EDR, some are XDR, some are NDR, some are all types of things. Ask them, what technology do you use to enable your services? Is it, best in class, Gartner rated, has been around for 20 years? Has it been approved for nation states, things like common criteria? Is there a rigorous analysis of that underlying supply chain? Or was it something that was just homegrown and you've taken to market, right? And so one of the things that's really unique about Fortinet and Hughes EchoStar is that these are well-established brands, right? The underlying technology at Fortinet has been around for 20 plus years. It's been more analyzed and validated by the analyst community than any other vendor that I know, but I've operated them all. So really dig a little bit deeper and find out ultimately who are the people. What's the DNA, as Paul would say? What's the DNA of the underlying partnerships? Are these fly-by-night companies? Are these companies that are set up to be bought out by private equity or to be clobbered up by another large vendor? Sustainability. Having gone through that experience, Paul, having been burned when you're what you thought was a strategic partner turns out to be more of a transactional vendor, right? And that they in turn go out of business or get out of security after a couple of years, and you're left there wondering, well, gosh, what do I do now, right? So yeah, absolutely find out the DNA underlying that vendor, whoever they are.
Okay, and then how about AI ops or AI ML or things of that nature? Are these important ingredients to picking your partner or MSSP?
They are, because one of the things about outsourcing security is about predictability of outcomes, right? You want to have a more consistent security risk management approach. You want to have more consistent reporting. You want to be able to demonstrate over time. But you also want predictive costs and predictable costing. That's why you go to a service provider to begin with, one of the main reasons at least. But if you deconstruct all the jargon around machine learning and artificial intelligence and deep learning, right? Look, all that is only as useful as how long it's been trained. Ask the deeper questions. Tell me about your AI platform, your artificial neural network. How many years has it been in existence? How much training did you put into it? What kind of training did you put into it? Tell me about how many billions, hopefully, of nodes that AI platform really has. The reason why that's so important is that AI allows that service provider to scale. It allows them to take in huge volumes of data and support a one-to-many business. So the other thing about MSSPs is to ask them, so How do I know that you can support this many users, customers, at a high enough level of efficiency for someone like me, right? And so their ability to demonstrate AI is not only relates to their ability to detect and mitigate security threats, it really begins to give you an idea about how deep their technology is and whether they really can scale. I'm sure Paul can talk about scalability, but again, ultimately it's about the outcomes that service provider delivers for you, right? And that's why AI is so important today.
Sure, and if I can add to that, another thing that AI and machine learning actually bring to the table is just more automation. So as Jonathan said, predictability, but that also reduces hopefully headcount just because there's so much automation. So another thing you should look at when you look at an MSSP is, ask them what their staffing levels are. Is there security operations people there 24/7, or is it an on-call service? I've had the pleasure of meeting many MSSPs, and some of them staffed with 300 people because they're very manual. They don't have a lot of automation. Others kind of do it with 20 people because they have superior automation and better algorithms. So these are the kind of things that would tip you off to what can help control costs, because humans are fortunately very expensive. And and what level of sophistication does the company actually have in reference to automation?
Excellent. We've talked about the security landscape, how it has evolved. We've talked about the value of an MSSP. We talked about how to pick the right managed security service partner for your organization. How can a company keep that relationship going? And what's to optimize that relationship? That's the second piece. That okay, you develop a relationship, you pick a MSSP. How do you optimize that relationship, and how do you keep it going, Jonathan?
Yes. Wow, you're bringing back lots of memories now. So yeah, you really have to treat your MSSP as your partner. So do a couple of things. Get to know the people that you work with. Get to know the SOC manager. Get to know the shift managers. Get to know the tier 3 SOC analysts that you may interact with. If you get an alert, call them back, close that cycle. You don't want to start a relationship with your MSSP when you have an incident, right? And so the way you optimize that relationship with them is to get to know them. Second part is make sure you really understand those SLAs and make sure those SLAs make sense to you and that they align to your business objectives. That helps you out as well. Because ultimately, when we buy MSS, it's about an outcome. It's not about the ability to get a 1/30th of monthly recurring charge as a credit, right? And so do that, do tabletop exercises, and also try to make it easier to work with your MSSP. Go do the vulnerability scans. That helps a lot. We're still talking about simple intermediate controls, right? Working with them, doing those exercises, understanding the SLAs, understand the RACI matrix. Understand what you're responsible for, understand what they're responsible for, and understand how you go about incident management. That goes a long, long way. But I would also stress that work with them, that MSSP is going to have best practices for you. And I guarantee you that those best practices would mitigate probably 8 out of 10 of the security incidents that you may encounter. So Paul, I'm sure you've got lots of experience in this area too, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the best-in-class MSSPs usually have a really robust professional services group or a consulting group to really help you kind of size the prize, size the risk, so you don't overdo it or, frankly, underdo it. So another watch out when you're doing your due diligence, is there that type of support as you're getting up and running, or do they send you a DIY kit and they say good luck and give us a phone call? So definitely something to look for.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Paul. The idea that when you look at a service provider, if they tell you, oh, you just got to select, bronze, silver, gold straight up front, that's something to be careful of. A good service provider partner is going to help you understand your current state. And they're going to tell you, don't buy anything before you understand where you're at today. What do you look like today? And then work with you to understand what your goals are, and translate those into security metrics, and then help you get from your current state to your desired state. That's the sign of a partner versus a vendor. It's a sign of a relationship versus a transaction, right? So look for people who want to help you manage risk versus making a quick sale, right?
Yeah, those are absolutely valid points. I mean, there are two things, right? You pick a partner, and then you also develop the relationship and keep the relationship going and make it stronger over the years, because security issues are not going away, and we have to keep on mitigating those issues and keep up with the technologies, keep up with the tool sets, and managed MSSP is the right way to make sure that you're up to date. Well, that was an excellent session. I'm going to go over a couple of questions that we have from the audience. And folks, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A button, type in your question and we'll try to address those. Let me ask one of the questions that came up. It's about DIY. So there are numerous stats about lack of security analysts and security trained personnel. Is it realistic for an organization to have a DIY approach to security, especially in these times?
No.
I
mean, gosh, I'm a recovering CISO, and I will tell you, in my career, the teams I've managed, we've looked at over 50,000 plus data breaches, right? And I'll tell you, when you begin looking at the simple errors people make, the advanced threats that we encounter, the networking issues we encounter, we're still talking about multi-factor authentication. We're still talking about security awareness training. We're still talking about asset management, configuration management, vulnerability management, basic things, right? I just don't believe that DIY works right now. The level of complexity is way too high, and the level of security challenges is also high. Look, I wouldn't even recommend DIY at a consumer individual level. That is, if it's one thing I would say out of anything else, irrespective, one thing you would take away from this panel is that security is not a DIY exercise, and you would be well served by having some third party helping you understand what your current state is and what you need to do, whether it's ourselves or Hughes. Find someone who can help you with this situation. It's definitely not a DIY exercise.
All right, Paul, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's again, echoing Jonathan, it really is become too complex out there. The threat environment is multi-focused, multifocal, comes from all different sides, and you think that you've stopped one leak and another one happens. But getting back to the basics, I'd say the vast majority of breaches occur because of just bad hygiene and human error. So getting back to the basics of just patching, doing vulnerability scans, shoring things up, because things do break and things do become vulnerable, and keeping up with that alone in and of itself will really, really help protect your network.
And Paul, that's a great point there, because the largest organizations with the deepest benches, right? Public sector, government agencies, national security agencies, all fall prey to those types of simple errors, right? And so if they're falling prey and they have huge budgets and staffs and partners, you can definitely see that DIY is absolutely not a viable approach, right? Yeah.
Okay. There's another question on Security Operating Center as a Service, so SOC-as. What should a small medium business look for to pick a SOC-as provider?
Well, getting back to what we stated before, make sure the company actually understands your industry, your vertical, and what you actually do. It's really going to help as you create that partnership, because they've already got that experience, and look at their other customers. If they're in the same vertical, the same size, that's really going to help out. And on the technical side, I'd still continue to look for efficiencies internally, see how sophisticated they are in reference to their tech. Again, large amounts of operator headcount usually is a sign that they're still using some legacy products and not really sophisticated in their AI and their ML to kind of automate a lot of the things and really get more focused on the problem sets.
And really, I would say, think through your decision. Do you really want or need SOC as a service? think about where your compute is going to be over the next 3 to 5 years. Are you still owning your own infrastructure, your own platforms? Are you consuming it as software as a services? Or are you consuming more cloud-based services, right? And understanding the shift in your organizational composition. Are you going to have people who can do the incident response? What are they responding to when you have SOC as a service, right? So really fundamentally review your business outlook and see whether that's the right service. Maybe you don't need SOC as a service. Maybe you need more an MSSP plus MDR capabilities, right? There are lots of approaches going down that. So make sure that SOC as a service and those nuances is actually what you need, and that really aligns with where you're going in the next 3 to 5 years before you make that commitment, because it may or may not be the right choice, because there's a lot of them out there.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all the questions we had so far. But thank you. I really want to thank you, Jonathan and Paul, both of you guys, for this excellent panel. Folks, if you have any other questions, please visit our website, hughes.com/security. You can fill out the form and ask a question if you're watching this on demand, or you're viewing this later, or you want to ask a question on a later time. With that, thank you very much. Everyone have a great day, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank you.